The storming of Seringapatam under General Baird on the 4th of May, 1799. Seringapatam, home of the Moonstone. The great yellow diamond said to be set in the forehead of the four-handed Indian god of the moon. Since the 11th century, this sacred gem has been guarded day and night by 3 Brahmin priests. Vishnu the Preserver has charged them with this task, and they have been there down through the ages to do his bidding. They are there guarding the Moonstone when Seringapatam is stormed by the British under General Baird. The General orders his officers, there shall be no excesses of plunder or confusion after the attack. There must be no looting. One of the officers charged with this duty is Colonel John Herncastle. But the lust of battle is in his eyes, and he is scarce fit to perform the duty for which he has been entrusted. He forces his way into the treasury of the palace, and so sees for the first time this astonishing diamond.
Herncastle! For God's sake, man, what have you done?
The Moonstone will have its vengeance yet on you and yours.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. Ably done, if I may say so. You know, of course, our admirable gardener, Mr. Begbie, and James, the footman, and Wilkins, the second footman. So, there you have it, the stealing of the Moonstone, and the less than respectable part played in it by Colonel Herncastle. However, the diamond is in his possession, and we must ask ourselves what became of it. Indeed, more than that, what became of anybody who had anything to do with it? Did the Indian curse?
The Moonstone will have its vengeance yet on you and yours.
Yes, James, thank you. Where was I? Oh yes, did the Indian curse come true? Did the Moonstone indeed have its vengeance? Well, of course, no one knows the whole story. Some know part of the story, others know other parts. I have been asked to fit these parts together so that we may see for the first time, as it were, the whole picture. Betteridge, trusted steward of the household, together with the staff, have agreed to assist me in this endeavour.
Excuse me, Mr. Bruff, I don't mean to interrupt, but I think we should perhaps point out...
Yes, of course, Miss Clack. Miss Clack is, of course, not a servant. Miss Clack is Miss Rachel's cousin. Miss Rachel is, well, more of Miss Rachel later. Miss Clack has volunteered to assist in the telling of the story. In fact, she insisted upon it. My own dear wife will also be assisting. My name is Bruff, Matthew Bruff, and I have the honor to represent the Verinder family in all matters legal.
A solicitor. Call me when I'm required, won't you?
It was as the family solicitor that I was made party to certain arrangements by Colonel Herncastle concerning the Moonstone. Of course, he knew of its rarity and indeed of its immense value. He also knew of the curse attached to it. And now, Colonel, perhaps you would explain to us some of these arrangements.
Yes, sir. Perhaps you'd look after that. I slipped it in my pocket when I was stealing it.
Yes, of course, thank you. Thank you, Colonel. The arrangements, please.
Yeah. Listen to me, Bruff. The Moonstone is to be kept in a secure box in my bank, and there it must remain until I say otherwise.
Yes, sir. Though there were many in his family who thought he should have relinquished the diamond altogether.
Stuff and nonsense, Bruff. It's mine, and that's all there is to it. Every year, at a date set by me, and at a location determined by me, a letter shall be sent declaring that I am still alive. If that letter does not arrive at the stated time and in the stated place, let it be known that I have probably been murdered.
Murdered, sir?
That's what I said. On that event, the Moonstone is to be divided up, cut into smaller stones, and sold off.
Yes,
And that should make the beggars think before they try to plumb me off. Ha!
as you wish. So, the years passed. However, the Colonel was not murdered, and the Moonstone remained in the bank. And here I think, Betteridge, you may take over the telling of the story, because no one knew more than you of what went on in Lady Verinder's household.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Gabriel Betteridge, house steward to Lady Verinder, and I like to think, loyal servant to that good family for many a year. The visit was made, as Mr. Bruff said, not here, but at my lady's London house. It was the night of the 21st of June, Miss Rachel's birthday. And there was, as usual, a party to mark the occasion. My daughter Penelope answered the door.
I've called on my sister to wish my niece a happy birthday.
Thank you, Ben. This is my daughter Penelope.
And I really am his daughter. Only, I'm acting his daughter too. On account of the fact it was me answered the door that night.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, Pen. I took the Colonel's message to my lady.
What is it, Gabriel?
It's your brother, my lady. He says...
Tell my brother Miss Rachel is engaged and that I decline to see him.
Which I couldn't blame her. The Colonel has many bad things against his name, and not just the stealing of rare jewels. My lady says...
You're an old fool, Betteridge.
What?
A ridiculous old fool.
Is he going to be allowed to get away with that, Mr. Bruff?
It's not me saying it, it's the Colonel.
I was there. I know the Colonel said nothing of the kind.
Yes, Begbie, kindly temper your enthusiasm. We are only telling a story.
Beg your pardon, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Bruff.
Thank you, Betteridge, but you may be sure I shall remember my niece's birthday.
Well, with that, off he went, and I never saw the sour-faced sinner again, thank goodness. Of course, I always thought he'd find a way of paying Lady Verinder back for striking him like that. I never imagined how he'd do it. Anyway, shortly after that, the old rogue died.
Peacefully, in my bed.
2 more years went by, and that brings us to the night in question. The family was back at Frixing Hall in Yorkshire in this very house for Miss Rachel's birthday. For her coming of age, in fact.
I'm Dora. I work in the kitchen.
Yes, yes, yes. But for now, she is to be Miss Rachel Verinder.
There was to be a dinner party for the birthday, as usual.
With all manner of grand and important guests.
That's Nancy, by the way.
Oh yes, I'm Nancy, a maid. And this is Mrs. Grace, the cook.
Jolly Dr. Candy, the local physician, was coming. Else.
Oh,
And this is Else, who's not long joined us. You've not long joined us, have you, Else?
oh.
Else? Mr. Murthwaite, the famous Indian traveller, was to join the party. And very handy he turned out to be.
But there were more important guests than that lot.
Like who?
Well, like the 2 young men who pined so much for Miss Rachel.
Mr. Franklin Blake.
And Mr. Godfrey Ablewhite. That's who.
Now, Mr. Franklin Blake was a fine young man. I knew him when he was a boy. I've always liked him.
Oh, thank you, Gabriel.
He'd just returned to this country from foreign parts.
He was always off to foreign parts.
But Mr. Ablewhite was a philatelist.
Philanthropist.
Yes, that's right. He done good deeds.
He was on a number of charitable committees. Female benevolence and female destitution could do nothing without Humphrey Ablewhite.
And he was a marvellous speaker.
Oh, but there was no one like Mr. Ablewhite for drawing your tears and your money.
So, what chance had Mr. Franklin Blake with my young lady after such a man's?
Oh, you'd be surprised.
That I would, Pen. Tall, distinguished, and good. All points to Mr. Ablewhite, even though I don't much like the man.
Well, we shall see. Anyway, while we were getting ready, another lot pitched up.
Another lot.
Yes, unexpectedly. They weren't guests at all, really.
They were.
The acrobats!
Acrobats and jugglers from the Orient. 3 of them.
Though, they first turned up before the party, Nancy, if you remember.
Yes, that's right. They first came up to the house to perform their tricks. Such things as you never before saw in your life.
While I am perfectly happy to do the alley-oops, the actual acrobatics are proving beyond me, I'm afraid.
Well, then you really needn't bother, Miss Clack.
As you know, most of my time is spent in the production and distribution of improving leaflets, rather than in backflips and such like.
It really doesn't matter.
I could distribute a few leaflets. I have some with me, and I could do it in the Oriental manner.
No! Miss Clack, if we may proceed, please.
I thought their tricks were a bit on the clumsy side, to be honest. I know.
Oh, there was one they did that made my flesh creep. And this they performed after my father had sent them packing. And when they thought no one was looking.
Oh, when you thought, they thought no one was looking.
I was there, Father.
Oh.
I'm sure they believed they were alone.
They had a small English boy with them, and the chief one said some words over him.
And they put him in a trance.
Beg pardon, miss. It was the boy they put in the trance.
Oh, yes.
How's the lovely? Yes, well, off you go then, Liza. This is Liza, yet another maid. Boy, boy, hold out your hand. I am pouring this ink into your hand. Look at it. Look. What do you see? Do you see the English gentleman from foreign parts?
She means Mr. Franklin Blake, I think.
Quiet, Father.
Oh.
I see him. And is it on the road to this house, and no other, that the English gentleman will travel today?
He's on the road to this house and no other, that the English gentleman will travel today.
And has the English gentleman got it about him?
Yeah.
And will he come? Boy, boy, will he come?
Mist rises in my head, puzzle I can't see no more today.
So, what were we to make of all that? Three Oriental types telling strange tales of someone making his way to the house and bringing it with him.
Oh, well, you see, it is perfectly obvious that it refers to...
Miss Clare, I really must insist that we tell the story in sequence. Bettridge's version first.
Bettridge's version. Oh, yes, of course. A superannuated servant before a member of the family. Oh, naturally.
Bettridge.
Yes, well, I soon found the answer to part one of the problem. The gentleman from foreign parts was, as I surmised at the time, Mr. Franklin Blake. And he was indeed making his way to my lady's house, but not by the main road. He decided to walk the last part of the journey along the coastal path.
Oh, why does it have to be me? It's always me that gets the jobs like this.
I happened to be out there myself at the time and I saw him coming.
I'll give her what for when I get to her.
What is it, girl? Where are you off to?
It's Rosanna, Mr. Bettridge. She's not coming for her dinner, and I has to go and fetch her.
Ah, Rosanna. Yeah, Rosanna was our second housemaid at the time.
And a strange girl she was, too.
My lady brought her up from London.
Rosanna kept herself to herself. She made no friends, and she was as mournful a soul as you could wish to meet.
Well, that was due to the circumstances in which my lady found her.
Oh, yes.
Which I knew, but the other servants didn't.
She found her in a prison.
Well, of course they know now, looking back at him, I'd say. But I knew then. That's what made me sorry for the girl. She was so very poor and her life so hard, she had turned to crime.
She'd been arrested as a thief.
But my lady, being a Christian lady, saw the good in Rosanna and gave her a chance. Though there was little she could do for the poor creature's melancholy. I'll fetch her into dinner, Nancy. Where is she?
Where do you think, Mr. Bettridge? Where she usually goes? To the Shivering Sands.
Shivering Sands? Ooh. If you walk down to the coast from the house, you come to two spits of rock jutting out into the sea.
And between them is the most horrible quicksand on the coast of Yorkshire.
A lonesome and horrible place, I can tell you. At certain times, at the turning of the tide, you can see a shivering and a trembling across the water. The Shivering Sands. No boat ever goes near the place.
And yet it was my favourite walk. Down to the Shivering Sands.
Rosanna? Rosanna, my girl, what's the matter?
Oh, I don't know, Mr. Bettridge. My past life still comes back to me sometimes.
Oh, there's roast mutton and suet pudding waiting for you back at the house.
Something draws me to this place, Mr. Bettridge. I try to keep away from it, but I can't. I dream of it, night after night.
Gabriel, hello!
Who is it?
Yes, who is it?
Mr. Franklin Blake!
Gabriel, Bettridge, old friend, how are you?
Oh.
Oh, I say.
You mustn't mind Rosanna, sir. She's a bit flustered.
What on earth should she be?
Oh, dear. Well, it's not usual to see a gentleman along this part of the Yorkshire coast, perhaps, has it? Anyway, it's good to see you back, Mr. Franklin.
And you, Gabriel. But were you not expecting me for Miss Rachel's birthday?
Indeed we were, sir, but not until tomorrow. And certainly not by the coastal path. Would you care for a wash after your journey? Thank you.
Well, I have my own reasons for a change of plan, Gabriel. I believe I was followed.
Followed?
So I took an earlier train and walked the last part as you saw.
Well, why should you be followed?
On the coastal path. Well, perhaps because I came from Colonel Herncastle's bank at the Colonel's instructions.
What is there?
As set out in his will. His purpose and mine now, though it doesn't please me, is to bring Miss Rachel a gift for her coming of age.
Well, there could be no harm in that, surely.
And that gift is the Moonstone.
Ah.
Do you know about this, I take it?
Yeah, I do indeed, sir.
And the curse that is supposed to adhere to it?
Moonstone will have its vengeance on you and yours.
I must say
Yes, I know that too, sir.
I must say I do wonder at it, Gabriel. Colonel Herncastle really did believe in the curse. Did he also need to pass it on to his niece as well?
I thought it wise to inform Mr. Franklin about the arrival of the Indian acrobats and their strange tricks. Good grief.
Then this is the subject of much attention. I have it in my pocket. Or in possession. Makes one think, eh, Gabriel?
Makes me think, sir, that you'd be wise to take it straight back to the bank at Fixing Hall until such time as you need it again.
On Miss Rachel's birthday.
Yes, sir. Not that I wish to alarm you, sir.
Very wise, Gabriel. And, how is Miss Rachel?
How is Miss Rachel? Oh, dear. If only the poor young man had some of the qualities of Godfrey Ablewhite. Lovelier than ever, sir. Not my place to say, no doubt, but I am accounted something of an expert in these matters.
Jolly good. Jolly good.
So, young Mr. Franklin took the Moonstone back to the bank, and we turned our attention once more to the running of the house.
And while we were doing that, the two young men, Mr. Franklin Blake and Mr. Godfrey Ablewhite, turned their attention to Miss Rachel.
Which Mr. Ablewhite did by writing poems.
Rachel, I was moved to pen some words, some trifling lines. I hope that perhaps you in turn would be moved to read.
Thank you, Godfrey.
Now, Mr. Franklin had his own way of going about things. Not very conventional, and not in my opinion anyway, calculated to stand much of a chance against the literary approach.
Rachel.
Franklin.
You're looking. Oh, you're looking for your mother, perhaps. She was in the garden.
No, I wasn't. How are you, Franklin? How are your travels?
Pretty good, you know. Pretty extensive. Germany. Places like that.
But you still smoke those horrible cigars, Franklin.
This?
I had hoped that foreign education might have cured you of those.
No, this is my last one, actually.
Really?
Yes. I find I don't even want that.
I think we got cigars there and then, on the very spot.
Rachel, I wonder whether you and I, whether in the time leading up to your birthday, whether we could,
Yes?
do a spot of painting.
Oh!
You know, paint your door, your bedroom door. I mean the door to the corridor leading up to your room.
My door.
Yes, decoratively, I mean, of course, with all sorts of designs and flourishes.
Oh, I see. Well, yes, that might be amusing.
Jolly good.
Poor Mr. Franklin. He had neither the height nor the style of Mr. Godfrey. You see, I mean, whoever heard of winning over the heart of any young lady by the painting of a door? I thought he might take a leaf from Godfrey Ablewhite's pocketbook and try the direct approach.
Rachel, perhaps you read my verses,
Yes, well, I haven't quite
but
finished
I
all
venture
yet.
to hope that you understood them, the passion behind the words.
Well,
Rachel, might I have a word?
yes, Godfrey, of course. What is it?
In the garden.
In the garden.
I mean, might I have a word in the garden?
Oh, yes, of course, I see.
If you would be so kind.
Here now, none of that.
It's not Aldebaran, Mrs. Grace.
Come away from that door.
But the very fingertips.
Oh, has he?
Oh, it's whispering.
Oh well, I say if it's just a matter of time. Well, what happened?
Oh, Father, she's turned it down.
Never.
I did say, didn't I? Mr. Blake's not finished yet.
I was beginning to think my daughter was right. Perhaps there's more to this painting of doors than meets the eye. Although it was hard to tell what Miss Rachel herself was thinking at the time.
Anyway, if Mr. Franklin's chances improved with the dashing of Mr. Ablewhite's, they didn't improve for long. A day or two later, they were thoroughly dashed themselves. For a start, he had a meeting one night with a Frenchman. All very secret, and no one was to know a word of what passed between them.
Which was that Mr. Blake had got himself into debt. And the French had come over
To claim what is rightfully mine.
I borrowed money, I must admit, but I will repay it. I assure you.
Well, you're not able. Not able. But an agreement was made.
I am unable to pay you. You must accept that I am unable.
Unable. An Englishman's word. A Monsieur Blake. Worthless.
Do you mean to insult me?
What is going on?
Oh, I'm sorry. I appear to have got myself into difficulty.
There is no difficulty, madame. He owes me money.
Then you will be paid, monsieur. Kindly lower your voice.
But of course. Enchanté, madame.
I don't know how I...
Franklin, how have you managed to get yourself into such scrapes?
Yes, I'm sorry.
It's so disappointing.
Debt, Franklin. Have you no principle?
Rachel, please. Don't be harsh.
What else can I be? How am I to know what you'll do next?
brought about a day's heavy silence between the pair of them.
But of course they made it up again, eventually.
But the worst was yet to come.
There, finished. And in plenty of time for the party.
Is it still wet?
And it will be for a few hours yet, Rachel. You must be careful. Now, if you'll excuse me, I must drive to Fritzinghall. I have business to attend to.
A fetching of the Moonstone.
The Moonstone, yes. Although I was in two minds about this gift, and in any case, tired and restless.
Well, you're short of sleep, Mr. Franklin. I can't help noticing.
I am, Gabriel.
Well, the stink of paint being the cause of the guess.
Not at all.
Well, it's very pervasive.
No, it's the absence of cigars. I barely sleep a wink. But I shall get over it. I shall overcome it.
So off he went to the bank, and back he came with the Moonstone.
Which he presented to my mistress in a little ceremony before the party itself, so that she might wear it for the occasion if she so chose.
She had with her Mr. Godfrey Ablewhite's two sisters, big, robust, yellow-haired girls, and most exuberant.
The bouncers, I call them.
Lady Verinder was also there, and I could tell she was not best pleased to see such a legacy make its appearance in her household.
Sisters, calm yourselves. It's mere carbon, that's all.
Thank you for taking care of it, Mr. Blake. I shall wear it tonight.
I don't like Miss Gabriel.
No, my lady.
If this diamond is Rachel's to do with as she wishes, we must see that she disposes of it.
She seemed quite attached to it, my lady.
No doubt that was my brother's intention. But I don't like these stories, these rumours about
Rumours,
it.
my lady?
You know as well as I do, Gabriel. The thing is said to be cursed. It would bear she had no more to do with it.
No doubt it were. But Miss Rachel was a strong-minded young lady, and she had taken quite a fancy to it.
And wear it that night for the birthday dinner. She was determined to do.
Oh, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a happy occasion to which I have been looking forward for some time. I would just like to say how pleased I am that you are all able to join me in celebrating my dear Rachel's coming of age, and to share in that happiness.
A toast, ladies and gentlemen, to Rachel.
To Rachel.
And it should have been a happiness. Headstrong she might be, but there's no lovelier young lady than our Miss Rachel. Daughters accepted in the usual way, of course. But happy wasn't the word for that night.
There was a cloud over the whole proceedings somehow.
Some attempts were made.
That Indian diamond you wear, Miss Verinder.
Mr. Murthwaite, the Indian traveller. Celebrated. Very.
And taciturn. Extremely.
Very striking.
Thank you, Mr. Murthwaite.
But if you ever go to India, don't take it with you.
No.
I know a city, and in that city there's a temple. Well, dressed as you are now, well, your life would not be worth 5 minutes' purchase.
Also present was our local physician, Dr. Candy. A pleasant, companionable little man, though he had an unfortunate habit of plunging into conversation without thinking. And so, the evening drew on.
Getting gloomier by the minute. And the reason? Well, in my mind, there's no doubt.
The Moonstone.
The Moonstone was to blame. The chap would have flown without that.
Even Mr. Blake could do little to cheer things up. He mentioned his sleeplessness and Dr. Candy showed an interest.
Your nerves are out of order, sir. You must allow me to recommend a course of medicine.
A course of medicine and a course of groping in the dark are one and the same to me, Doctor.
Nonsense, sir. I assure you.
You will not be able to assure me where doctors are concerned.
Oh, really, sir? I cannot understand how such prejudice...
Reason, not
Gentlemen,
prejudice.
it is Rachel's birthday. This is not the time.
Not like Mr. Franklin that to take offence on such paltry grounds. I think it came as a relief to guests and servants alike when the evening was interrupted.
Oh, I say! Drums! Drums in the garden! Oh, excuse me!
Gabriel,
Sir?
did you not say that Indian acrobats came with drums?
They did touch them, I'm sure.
And Rachel wears the Moonstone.
Which they must not see.
Rachel, you can see them here.
The night air, miss.
And it looks like rain.
Utter nonsense.
But the display did not last long anyway. Mr. Murthwaite, our esteemed and reserved Indian traveller, made his way through the crowd and out onto the terrace, where he spoke in whispers to the acrobats.
2 moments later, turned tail and left.
Oh dear, they're going! Oh, they were so much fun!
Sorry, ladies. Entertainment's over for the evening.
Well, it's so disappointing, Mr. Murthwaite.
There's a storm coming on. No umbrellas, you see.
Mr. Murthwaite,
Yeah.
may I ask what you said to the jugglers just now?
Well, what I say to you, Blake, there are no more jugglers than you or I. I tell you what, they were high caste Brahmin priests.
Really?
Yes, most peculiar. You see, they've offended their caste in 2 ways. First, by pretending to be jugglers. The second, by coming across the sea here. Now, I wonder why they might be doing that.
Gabriel, I think it's time you told Mr. Murthwaite the history of the Moonstone, don't you?
Indeed so, yes, sir. And so we did. From its capture at Seringapatam to the recent arrival of the Indian jugglers and their trance state for seeing Mr. Franklin Blake's arrival. He was most impressed.
Well, you amaze me, sir. And you, sir, you're lucky to be alive.
Lucky to be alive?
The Moonstone is sacred to them. That is why they've given up their caste. They'll do anything to protect it and see it back in the forehead of the Indian god. And that includes killing you while you traipse it backwards and forwards across the country.
Well, you don't mean they killed Mr. Franklin?
Do you smoke, Betteridge?
Yes, sir.
Don't you care much about the ash from your pipe when you empty it?
No, sir.
Well, they care as much about killing a man as you do about emptying the ash from their pipe. Oh, wonderful people, sir, but with the Moonstone in their sights, ruthless.
And Rachel has the jewel in her possession at this very moment.
Precisely. Do you have dogs in the house?
Yes.
Big dogs?
Yes, sir.
Why, you set them loose in the grounds tonight, and you both do well by daylight to rid yourself of the Moonstone. Yes. Good night, gentlemen. Lucky to be alive, sir. Don't count on that luck lasting.
Oh no, the storm was upon us, and a real storm outside, I mean. And the guests were making their way home.
Mums were snugging up in closed carriages. The poor little Dr. Candy went home in an open gig.
You get wet through, Dr. Candy.
Oh, not I, sir. Don't you know by now, doctors are waterproof.
The others might have been, but he wasn't. He caught a chill, and a nasty one. More of that later.
So that left the family and the house guests, Mr. Franklin Blake and Mr. Godfrey Ablewhite, and the bouncers.
The bouncers had already bounced off there.
Thank goodness. No offence.
But Miss Rachel still seemed full of life, and still entranced by the splendour of the Moonstone.
Where should you keep it, Rachel?
I don't know, Mother. Yes, I do, of course. The Indian cabinet in my little sitting room.
The Indian
That's
cabinet?
the perfect
But
place.
it has no key.
So why should it need one?
Well, a diamond of that size.
What harm can come to it, Mother? Besides, there are no thieves in this house.
Thieves, no.
Don't worry so, Mother. I shall see you in the morning, yes? Good night, my darling. Good night.
And I couldn't help noticing the tender words she exchanged with Mr. Blake before she retired. Though I didn't hear what they said, of course. You noticed that too, did you, Father?
Yes, Pen. Yes, I did. And very affectionate, so it seemed. I also noticed how tired and drawn Mr. Franklin was looking. So did Mr. Godfrey.
You look done in, Blake.
Oh, I should be all right.
I'm sure a little brandy and water wouldn't come amiss. Help you sleep, perhaps.
Yes, perhaps.
Allow me to bring you some.
It's most kind. Thank you, Godfrey.
Rivals both for Miss Rachel, but still capable of gentlemanly conduct. I like that.
And so the house slept at last.
I went down and let the dogs off their collars, and then put my poor old bones to bed, where the worries of the day kept me awake till almost dawn. I lay there in the silence of the house, listening to the splash of the rain. What is it? What is
The
it?
diamond is gone!
Gone?
Someone has been in my daughter's sitting room. The drawer of the Indian cabinet is open and the Moonstone gone.
And Rachel?
Rachel is upset, but she is all right.
Can she offer any
No,
explanation?
Franklin. All I know is the diamond has gone. There can be no doubt.
Perhaps if I spoke to her.
Rachel will not come out of her room. She will not speak of what's happened even to me. She was weeping.
Weeping?
Of course it's upsetting, but even the Moonstone's a mere object, a thing.
Of very great value, my lady.
Yes, Gabriel, but you know Rachel. Trinkets, decorations never counted much with her, did they?
No, my lady. It was true. They never did.
And yet here she is, inconsolable. I don't understand it.
I think there's nothing for it, Aunt. We must call for the police.
And that we did. The police sent a superintendent from Fritzing Hall to investigate.
Seagrave's name. Superintendent Seagrave.
His very bearing seemed to indicate that if we had problems, he was the man to deal with them.
You know what's happened here, Superintendent?
I am fully appraised, sir, yes. And you are?
Franklin Blake, Lady Verinder's nephew.
Nephew. Thank you. I shall, of course, wish to speak to everyone who was present at the time.
Surely the first thing to be done is to apprehend the Indian jugglers who were here last night.
I see. Well, that's the first thing to do, is it, sir?
Without a moment's delay.
Yes, well, perhaps it is. Perhaps it isn't.
It was, obviously. Only Superintendent Seagrave didn't like being told so.
Anyway, there being no better line of inquiry, he ordered a man to Fritzing Hall to find out the movements of the mysterious acrobats and jugglers.
And the result that came back surprised us all.
An interesting theory, Mr. Nephew, but quite erroneous as things turn out. Couldn't have been Indian jugglers.
Why not?
Because, under suspicion of being rogues and vagabonds, they spent the whole of last night in jail.
So, who could have been responsible?
Your name, miss?
Penelope. Miss Rachel's maid.
Miss Rachel's maid. Who could be responsible, Miss Rachel's maid? Well, now, consider the facts. The diamond is missing. Indian jugglers couldn't have done it. There are no signs of a break-in. Therefore, it must have been someone inside this house. Probably one of you lot. Now then. Milling about and moaning will not help. Now look, one of you has brushed against this door here. Right, back to your rooms. When I need to see you, I shall send for you.
We shall get nowhere with this one, Gabriel.
No, sir.
The man's a fool.
Oh, but he's in charge of the investigation, Mr. Franklin.
At the moment, yes, but I have contacts in London. I intend to telegraph and ask him for help.
Ah.
That's settled then, I think.
Superintendent Seagrave, I really can't blame my staff for taking offence.
Oh?
I have complete trust in them, they know that.
Maybe you have, Lady Verinder. But someone's taken the diamond, though, haven't they? And as I said before, the finger's beginning to point to someone inside the house. Now, if I might have a word with the young lady in question, Miss Rachel.
I'm afraid not, Superintendent. My daughter refuses to speak to anyone at the moment.
Oh?
Where is Mr. Blake?
Here.
I would like to speak with you a moment.
Ah, Miss Verinder, a word if I might.
Franklin, what can you say for yourself? Please.
Ah, a word if I might.
No, you might not. I didn't send for you and I have nothing to say to you.
But Miss Verinder.
Except perhaps this. Your investigation is futile. The Moonstone has been stolen, and neither you nor anyone else shall ever find it.
I see. This is possibly significant.
We were getting nowhere. Mr. Franklin sent his telegraph to London, appealing for a more experienced man to deal with the case. Meanwhile, Seagrave went about the place offending people, including my lady, I regret to say, and learning nothing.
We were all questioned, and our rooms searched in a most offhand manner.
Nothing came to light.
There was one puzzling occurrence, though, during this time. It concerned poor sad Rosanna Spearman. She sought out Mr. Franklin in the library.
disturb you, sir? Being as what you probably want is some peace.
That's all right.
Rosanna. Rosanna Spayman, sir. We met down at the shore, sir.
So we did. The Shivering Sands, that's right. Oh, Rosanna, was there anything?
Oh, yes, sir. I thought to return this ring, sir, which I think you dropped in your room.
Ah, well, thank you, Rosanna.
I am right, sir. It is your ring.
Yes, it is my ring, thank you.
I knew it was. It's a strange thing about the diamonds, sir.
Yes, it is, Rosanna.
They'll never find it, will they? No. Nor the person who took it. I'll answer for that.
Rosanna?
Sorry, Mr. Butteridge.
Rosanna? Yes. She returned the ring to me.
Oh.
But I say, Gabriel, what a strange way of going on the girl has. She should be careful. Well, if she spoke to Seagrave, what she said to me, then he might suspect. And he might just have a point.
Oh, I'm sure it was just rashness. I'll speak to her, Mr. Franklin.
Perhaps you should. That's the second time she's dashed off like that. I wonder what could have got into her.
Oh, Father.
Ah, a Penelope. It's Penelope now. Oh, Father, what?
Well, it's obvious what's the matter with Rosanna.
Well, if it's obvious, Pen, I think Mr. Franklin or I would have worked it out, don't you?
Father, she's in love with him.
What? Who?
Rosanna, with Mr. Blake.
In love? Rosanna? Why, God, she's...
A servant, yes. So it's quite hopeless. That's exactly why she acts so strangely and looks so sad. Poor girl.
I beg your pardon, sir. The London policeman, sir.
Yes?
Apparently he's on his way. The name is Cuff.
Cuff, not Sergeant Cuff.
Well, so I understand.
This is excellent news, Gabriel. When it comes to unravelling a mystery, there is the equal in England of Sergeant Cuff.
Oh.
Is this Lady Verinder?
Yes, it is.
I am Sergeant Cuff.
The man himself.
No equal in England.
Now we shall find our way to the truth.
You have a gardener here.
That was quick. Yes, Sergeant. Mr. Begbie.
Then I should very much like to speak to Mr. Begbie Gardener.
Wow. Begbie! Step up here, will you?
Oh, yes, I can tell. Very good, Mr. Gardener. What is? Beautiful bed of white roses and blush roses you have out there. Our old English musk rose, together with the newer kinds.
Oh, yes, sir.
Only you don't put gravel on the walks, Mr. Gardener. They don't like that.
And this was the man to recover Miss Rachel's diamond?
Yes, one day soon, please God, I shall retire from catching thieves. I shall try my hand at growing roses. Only there will be grass walks, Mr. Begbie Gardener, between my beds. Right. Will you now show me the room from which the diamond was taken?
It's this way, Sergeant Cuff.
Seagrave. Superintendent Seagrave.
At your service, sir.
You'll find little in the room to assist you, Sergeant. I've already examined it thoroughly.
I see. Well, I note two items of interest straight away, Superintendent.
Really?
The first being the paint smear on the door. You noticed that, I take it?
I noticed it, of course, and then dismissed it.
Oh?
As a mere trifle.
I see. A mere trifle. And how did it come about, this trifle of a paint smear?
Oh, the servants swishing about the place, of course, when I first made my investigation.
Which was when?
Thursday morning after the theft, at 11. They clearly brushed against it with their petticoats, so I packed them off to their rooms.
And the paint was definitely wet then?
Yes? Well...
Does anyone know when the paint was wet?
Oh, yes, Sergeant. Mr. Franklin Blake here does, Sergeant. He helped Miss Rachel with the painting of the door.
That's you, is it, sir? And the young lady, she might remember, might she, if she had a hand in the painting?
Yeah, well, she might, but she's not disposed to say it.
She's in her room, won't come out.
However, I know that we painted that part of the door last, about 3 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon.
And it takes how long to dry, sir?
12 hours at the most.
12 hours, so dry by 3 in the morning. 8 hours dry, Mr. Superintendent, by the time you suspect the servants' petticoats of swishing against it.
Well...
I'll work this myself now, Superintendent, thank you. Don't let me keep you from your duties in town.
Paint smear on the door. There is such a thing, Sergeant, as making a mountain out of a molehill. Good morning.
Sergeant, this is Lady Verinder.
At your service, Lady Verinder. We have made a start, ma'am. It's possible that Mr. Blake here has put a most useful clue into our hands.
Oh, really?
Yes.
You say he has put a clue into your hands?
I'd say perhaps he has, Miss Verinder.
You're another police officer.
A Sergeant Cuff of the Detective Police Miss.
Then may I suggest that you do your duty by yourself and do not allow Mr. Franklin Blake to help you?
Thank you, miss. You know about the smeared paint on this door?
I know nothing of the smear.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sergeant. My daughter's not usually so...
So abrupt, my lady? Well, she has experienced the loss of a valuable diamond. Now, who was last out of this room on Wednesday night?
That would be my daughter, Penelope. She went to bed about 12.
So the smudge occurred between then and 3 in the morning. There are 3 discoveries to make, starting from that smear. Find out first whether there's any dress in the house with a smear of paint on it. Find out second who that dress belongs to. And find out third how that person can account for it. And the way to proceed is to search the wardrobes.
I'm afraid I don't like the idea of that, Sergeant.
Oh?
The people have already had their rooms searched and been insulted in the doing of it.
By our friend the superintendent.
Yes, I don't want them insulted again.
No more do I, Lady Verinder. I have a suggestion to make which may prevent them taking further offence. If the servants were to know that I would search all the rooms in the house, from your ladyship's down, all or none, ma'am, that's what I suggest, all or none, unless you have any objection.
Oh, of course not.
Thank you. Then that's how we shall proceed. Perhaps you'll convey this to your daughter.
There were aspects of this detective work which appeal to a man of reason like me. Puzzles and how to untangle them. What was the other thing?
What other thing?
Well, you said you noticed 2 items of interest. One was the paint smear.
The second was the housemaid. The sorrowful-looking one.
Rosanna.
Yes, it would be Rosanna. Last time I saw that face was in a London prison.
Yes, well, she's had the very unfortunate start to her life, Sergeant. But my lady knows all about it, and she trusts Rosanna Spearman completely. Won't hear a word against her.
And neither will you, Mr.
Betteridge.
You won't either, will you, Mr. Betteridge? Your kind heart won't let you.
What?
Tell me, you've noticed nothing unusual in her behaviour of late, I suppose?
Well, of course I have. It was nothing to do with a diamond, surely, or him. No, Sergeant?
No. Well, perhaps you'll do this for me then, Mr. Betteridge. If Rosanna goes out at all, just let me know, will you? I thought she might. Now, where's she off to, I wonder?
She was off to the Yolland's cottage at Cobb's Hole along the coast.
Yolland was a fisherman, and Rosanna was friendly with his wife and his daughter, Lucy.
I was glad. I like to think she had friends. Poor girl.
Well, perhaps we should have a word with Mrs. Yolland too. You show me the way, Mr. Betteridge?
Well, if you must.
The searching of the wardrobe, Sergeant.
Yes, my lady.
I've spoken to my daughter. She won't hear of it. Forbids it, in fact. In her own case, anyway.
I see. Well, there's a turn-up. Very well, my lady. The thing's off.
Oh.
I shan't be searching the wardrobes after all.
But...
All or nothing, ma'am. That's what I said. It can't be all, so it must be nothing. Good day.
So, off we went to speak to Mrs. Yolland at Cobb's Hole, along the coast, past the Shivering Sands.
The family's friendly with the girl, you say? Well, we must be careful. I don't want to alarm her or alert her. We'll do this subtly, Mr. Betteridge. Sure, Sergeant.
Mrs. Yolland, I bring you a visitor, Sergeant Cuff from London.
Oh, I've heard tell of him. You're very welcome to our cottage, sir.
He began with
the royal family.
Oh, aye.
Then the
primitive Methodists.
Oh, yes.
And the
price of fish.
Oh, dear, oh, dear.
Before arriving at Rosanna Spearman, by which time Mrs. Yolland was ready to tell him anything.
Oh, Rosanna, yes, she were here not long since. She comes in here and she talks with my girl Lucy and she says she wants to write a letter to a friend.
A friend?
She wouldn't say who, but it were a good long letter. And then she looked about the place and she said she'd a mind to purchase some things, if I'd a mind to sell them.
And they were?
A tin box, very nice, and 2 lengths of chain, 3 and 6pence the lot. Very reasonable, sir, I'm sure you'll agree.
Oh, very reasonable, Mrs. Yolland. Given away, been given away. Well, we won't keep you any longer, Mrs. Yolland, but I will say this one thing in parting. I wish Rosanna Spearman well. She has a hard time of it up at the house, so I hear. In fact, she might do well to leave the place.
Why, bless you, sir. That is what she plans to do.
Well, now, fancy that. A tin box and some chain. Now, what should she want with them?
No idea.
Oh, you surely have, Mr. Betteridge. She means to secure something in the box, to secure the box with the chain, and to sink the lot in the water, or the shivering sands, until she can pull it out again when she's ready. The question is, what does she mean to put in the box?
You're thinking it's the Moonstone?
No. I'd stake my experience on it. Rosanna hasn't got the diamond.
No, well then who?
Ah, I suspect we'll learn more when we get back to the house.
And so we did. My lady was waiting to speak to the sergeant.
I must tell you, Sergeant, that my daughter says she plans to leave the house.
Is that so, my lady? Well, I must say I advise against it.
Well, I advise against it myself, Sergeant, but Rachel is determined. She will visit her Aunt Ablewhite in Fritzing Hall.
I see. And Rosanna is back from her walk, is she?
I believe so, why?
I just wonder, my lady.
Just wonder what?
I believe the two things may be connected, Mr. Betteridge.
Connected how?
Well, Miss Rachel decides to leave against all advice, but only when Rosanna has returned from her visiting. Well, it may be that Miss Rachel felt unable to leave until she knew that whatever was in Rosanna's box was safely out of the way.
Are you suggesting that Miss Rachel is involved with the theft of her own diamond?
That's exactly what I'm suggesting.
No!
She must be involved, she must be. She took Rosanna into her confidence, calculating correctly, suspicion would fall on the girl.
No, damn you, no. I wish that the diamond had never come to this house, I do.
Well, it has, and it can't be undone now.
Him and his roses and his whistling. I had gone off the man. The next morning, we began with a meeting between Mr. Franklin Blake and the great detective on the terrace.
You have anything else to tell me, sir?
No.
You're sure of that, are you, sir?
Of course I'm sure, Sergeant. Why should I have anything else to tell you?
Conversations you might have had, perhaps. Tell me, sir, do you feel any interest in Rosanna Spearman?
What? No, I feel no interest in Rosanna.
And I can see Rosanna, clear as day, turn on her heels and run off.
Where to? Who knows? People were up and leaving all over the place. The next to go being, as she'd already warned us, Miss Rachel.
Just a minute, miss. You do realise that your leaving makes it all the harder for me to discover what happened to the Moonstone?
Yes. Goodbye, Mother. I'm sorry, Mama. Please try to forgive me. I must go.
Rachel.
I must go.
There's nothing to keep me here.
Yes, well, if you will excuse me, I believe that I must also leave. Unless there is anything else you would like to say.
No, Franklin, my boy. This is not the Rachel I know. But I think at the moment, perhaps it is better for you and Rachel to be apart.
Yes, perhaps.
Mr. Franklin, I'm sorry to come to this, sir.
Well, am I going to be?
I'm sure it won't always be like this. See, I'm sure she'll think better of you in time to come.
Are you sure? I'm not, I'm afraid.
Well, at least tell me where you're going, Mr. Franklin, sir.
Oh, I'm going to the devil, Gabriel, to the devil.
By which you meant Europe. But you see, all leaving.
Mr. Betteridge, Rosanna's gone missing.
You see, we'll soon be on our own. It's all right. She's a little upset.
No, Mr. Betteridge, only she went out to post a letter a whiles back. She didn't. She hasn't come back.
Well, ask her. Someone must have seen her.
Did. One of the stable lads saw her. She was...
Well?
She was heading for the shore, Mr. Betteridge.
The shore? The Shimmering Sands?
Aye, and running as fast as she could go, sir.
Oh, poor girl. Betteridge, fetch James. We must get down there right away.
It's no good, sir, if she went that way.
She did. I'm convinced of it.
Then she's lost, sir.
No! We must put out a boat.
No, sir, it's useless. What the sand gets, the sand keeps. Forever.
Rosanna! This is all your doing. The great Sergeant Cuff. Why can't you leave us in peace?
Not I, Gabriel, not I. Blame the Moonstone. The Moonstone has claimed another victim.
Forgive me! Forgive me!
See what you have brought us to. I shall not require your services further, Sergeant Cuff. Gabriel, give the wretch his money.
I thank you, Lady Verinder, but my duty here remains undone. I will not take the money, and you do me wrong to suggest I'm responsible for this.
Aren't you? Rosanna fell under your suspicions, your hints and insinuations,
Only say
and
what I
now
thought, my lady.
she is dead.
Yes, burdened by guilt.
Because of a diamond.
I believe so, my lady. Not on her own account, but for the sake of another who could easily verify my theory if only she were here to do so.
You mean my daughter?
I fear so.
Then you are wrong, Sergeant. I know nothing of the fate of the Moonstone, but I do know my daughter, and she is not
Forgive me,
capable...
Lady Verinder, but Miss Rachel has betrayed a most incomprehensible resentment against me, Mr. Blake and myself.
Incomprehensible?
As you witnessed for yourself, and yet we were the two people trying to find her diamond for her. Now, why should that be? What suggests itself to me is this. Miss Rachel found herself in debt. I do not say why. And the Moonstone presented her with an opportunity to remove that debt. And Rosanna had contacts in London.
This is offensive, Sergeant. And it is mere speculation.
Then let me speak to Miss Rachel. Let me surprise her with the news of Rosanna's death, and let us see what that shock may reveal.
No. I shall go. I shall speak to Rachel myself. I assume you trust me to send an honest report of her reaction.
And that she did. She went to town to question her own daughter. My lady has spirit. I always knew it. The great detective waited on her return.
We all waited. And eventually a letter came from my lady.
Miss Rachel denies it. There are no debts.
She hasn't got the diamond. Neither shock nor persuasion revealed a thing else.
You're on, Sergeant Cuff, and you are dismissed.
Very well. So be it. It has been a pleasure meeting you, Mr. Betteridge.
My lady thanks you. She is taking Miss Rachel to London to put all this behind her. Your services will no longer be required.
I like you, Gabriel Betteridge. If only you knew something about the growing of roses, you'd be the most completely perfect character on the face of creation. Before I go, I will make you 3 prophecies. First, the letter Rosanna was going out to post will arrive on Monday morning, and then you will hear more of her friends, the Yollop. Second, you will hear more and soon of the 3 Indian gentlemen. Third, you will hear news of a London moneylender by the name of Septimus Luca, Middlesex Place, Lambeth. Goodbye, Gabriel Betteridge.
The great detective. Wrong in every detail, but still coming up with his predictions.
Monday morning.
Where is it?
It's Lucy, the Yolland's daughter from the cottage.
Where's Franklin
You
Blake?
mean Mr. Franklin Blake?
Oh, I'll call him that.
No?
No, because I hate him. Murderer Blake, I call him.
No.
He killed my friend Rosanna. I loved that girl. For all her hardship, she were an angel to me. And he'd come along and he bewitched her. He knew what he was doing. Don't try and tell me he didn't. Now she's dead. We had a letter this morning in which she bid me goodbye, Mr. Betteridge. Goodbye forever. I also have a letter for him.
And Mr. Blake is no longer here. I shall forward it.
No. I'm to put it into his own cruel hand myself. Rosanna bid me do so, and I shall. If he wants to know what's in the letter, he's to return here and get it from me. Tell him so.
What's this?
A newspaper, Mr. Betteridge, in the post from London. It's a bit marked.
Septimus Luca? Sergeant Cuff said this.
Septimus Luca, the London moneylender, who has gone to the magistrates to complain that he's been bothered in his place of work and about the streets.
Followed and pestered.
By 3 Indians.
Suspected of breaking into his premises. Hearing from the Owens, hearing of the Indians, news of Septimus Luca. Well, that's Sergeant Cuff's prophecies. 1, 2, 3. And that's as far as I can take the story now, Mr. Bruff.
Well, thank you, Gabriel. A most detailed account, most useful. But just remind me, will you, where was Miss Rachel at this time?
In London, sir, with her mother in the house in Montague Square.
Ah, then we must take up the story in London. In London.
Oh, yes, this is me. This is me. For I lived in London and know all about it. We must pick up the pieces, as it were, with Mr. Godfrey Ablewhite. Now, we've heard of Mr. Godfrey, but not nearly enough for Betteridge falls short in his description, for he is a fine and noble man, and a benefactor to hundreds. Mr. Godfrey Ablewhite, I mean.
You too, Miss Clack, engage in good works. You're among the many kind ladies I have come to lean upon.
Well, in my own small way, perhaps. My particular thing is leaflets. Now, a leaflet can get right to the heart of the matter, so I never go anywhere without a ready supply. Oh, I have some with me now. Oh, yes. Here we are. A word with you on your cap ribbons. It deals with the vanity of the overdressed. It makes the point, but it does it in a subtle and gentle way. People go home and they think about it. Perhaps you would like to read it, madam, at your leisure. No, I really think this would benefit you.
Miss Clack, if we might proceed.
Very well. But I have to paint the picture, Mr. Bruff, and it is certainly to the point, because Mr. Godfrey is such a power in the world of good works.
In the world, among other things, of the Select Committee of the Mothers' Small Clothes Conversion Society.
The object being to rescue from the pawnbroker the unredeemed trousers of the working men.
To cut them down to size, so that they may be worn by their innocent children, and not return to the pawnbrokers again to pay for drink.
So you see, both caring and very clever, which neatly sums up Mr. Godfrey Ablewhite, I think.
Too kind.
Not at all. Yes, but 30th of June, 1848. Mr. Godfrey was coming out of a bank in Lombard Street when he was suddenly set upon. He was aware only of an arm grasping him round the neck, and that arm was... Oh, sorry. Tawny, mark that well. The poor man was thrown to the ground, and before he knew what was happening, two other persons appeared, and Mr. Godfrey was subjected to the humiliation of having his person searched.
They found nothing, of course. At least nothing they wanted. The next time I dined at my aunt's in Montague Square, Miss Rachel took a lively interest in the incident.
God, you must tell me. I'm dying to know. Your attackers, did they? Well, I mean...
Well, the Moonstone. The general assumption is that the diamond is what they're after, yes. In fact, scandal says that I have the Moonstone and am keeping it in pledge.
That's hateful.
Nevertheless...
To accuse an innocent man in that fashion. This is my fault.
Rachel, calm yourself.
No, Mother, it is. I know who took the Moonstone.
Rachel?
Lady Verinder?
It's all right, I'm all right.
I'm sorry, Mother, but I do know. And I know that Godfrey is entirely innocent. In fact, I shall go to a magistrate and swear to it. I shall sign a paper, anything.
My dear Rachel, there is no need. Besides, people will only say that
I
what
don't
we...
care what people will say. Allow me to do this, Godfrey, please.
Of course, I have no intention of using Rachel's decoration, Aunt. I hope you will forgive the deceit. Miss Clack, even a person of your steadfast moral rectitude will forgive, I hope, a small lapse, intended only to save Miss Rachel further distress.
A noble, upright soul. Lady Verinder, Aunt, are you all right?
Oh, I'm afraid that I am not. I have a heart condition that has left me weak and, well, uncertain of the future.
Oh, Aunt, you can't mean...
My solicitor, Mr. Bruff, will call this afternoon. I am to make a will. Oh, may I ask if you would be good enough to witness it?
Me? Me?
I would be grateful. Naturally, my daughter must not know of this. She has troubles enough. I thank you.
Oh, it's you.
Good evening, Mr. Bruff. As Lady Verinder's niece, and I might add her friend, she has honoured me by asking me to witness her will.
Well, you'll have to do, I suppose. You can't benefit, of course, you realise that.
Oh? Yes. Thank you, I do realise that.
And how's the admirable Godfrey Ablewhite? Survived his mauling, has he?
There is no need to smirk, Mr. Bruff.
Well, what does he expect? Traipsing around with a valuable property in his person.
By which you mean the Moonstone, I suppose.
Ablewhite might fool a committee of fawning women, Miss Clack, but he doesn't fool me. He was in the house the night the diamond went missing. I don't trust the man.
Well, if it comes to that, so is Miss Rachel.
Oh, don't be foolish.
Sergeant Cuff himself indicated that she might be to blame.
Oh, but utter nonsense. If all the evidence in the world pointed to Miss Rachel and I had only her word for her innocence, I would take that word, ma'am, lawyer that I am.
Then you will be interested to hear that Miss Rachel herself has sworn to Mr. Godfrey's innocence just now in this very room.
Yeah. Oh, well then, clearly he has not taken the diamond.
I rather enjoyed telling him that, I must confess.
But I still don't like the man.
Oh, Mr. Bruff, before you go, a little something to read at your leisure. A stiff-necked man. Beyond redemption. Anyway, I signed the will for poor Aunt Verinder, and in a day or two I called back to see how she was faring. A surly servant showed me into the library. No one about, but I wasn't surprised in Lady Verinder's state of health. But wait, another visitor. Who can this be? Godfrey Ablewhite! Well, what on earth is he doing here? Surely there's a meeting of the Select Committee of the Mother Small Clothes Conversion Society this evening.
Rachel.
I thought you had a meeting of the Select Committee of the Mother Small Clothes Society.
I have, but I skipped it. When I see a ladies' committee now, I wish myself at the uttermost ends of the earth.
Oh!
And the reason for this, Rachel, is because I can think only of you.
Then don't. Godfrey, you mustn't. I'm too wretched, too unworthy.
Oh, never!
Yes. If the truth of this business is ever revealed, it will be seen that I've kept a secret. A terrible secret. But it will also be seen that I did nothing mean.
Rachel, I don't care. I know you do not love me.
No, I don't. And the man I do love is beneath contempt. If I could wrench him from my heart, I would. But I swear I will never, never see him again.
Then marry me.
What? You must be mad.
I don't ask for your love. All I ask is for your affection and that you will permit my devotion.
Then yes. Yes.
Rachel. I'll go and tell your mother.
No, not yet. She's unwell. Let her recover first. I ask you to keep our engagement a secret, at least for a while.
Well, I hardly know what to think. Miss Rachel and dear Mr. Godfrey engaged, and no one is to know about it, except of course I do, and I'm stuck here in the library. Oh, Lady Verinder, the prospect of such joy for her daughter. But how will she take the news in her weakened state of health? Suddenly, panic in the house. Doctors coming and going. Too late. Too late. Dear, good woman. Everyone thought so. And she never knew of Rachel's impending joy.
Miss Rachel couldn't bear to stay in Montague Square after the death of her mother. And she thought she couldn't go back to Yorkshire either.
Yorkshire being the scene of the scandal.
So, Mr. Godfrey's father, old Mr. Ablewhite, who was now her guardian, came up with as a suggestion.
I shall take a house in Brighton.
A rather frivolous place.
I shall install Mrs. Ablewhite in it, and I suggest that you, my dear, join her.
Thank you, Uncle.
Brighton. Oh, little chance of avoiding moral decline there, I fear. And you can bring Miss Clack with you as your companion. Oh, sea air, dear cousin, it's the perfect solution. What a shame your poor mother knew nothing of your impending joy.
Yes.
Godfrey cannot be with us this evening, unfortunately.
He has a business meeting to attend in London.
Oh.
So, we shall have to find ourselves entertainment enough.
Oh, a visitor! A visitor! Oh, Bruff. I could see by the look in his eye he had something secret to impart. I found him rather devious, I must confess.
Miss Clack, Mrs. Ablewhite, Miss Rachel.
We were just saying, Mr. Bruff, that with Godfrey in London, we must entertain ourselves this evening.
Indeed. Miss Rachel, would you care to take a walk the
Oh,
evening
yes,
yourself?
a walk is what I'd like above all things.
As I thought, he's come with a purpose, I'll warrant. Nice walk, dear.
Very, thank you.
What a shame your future husband cannot be with us.
Mr. Godfrey is not my future husband.
No, but surely...
No, I've determined to tell him we cannot marry.
And this wouldn't, by any chance, be in any way connected with your walk with the devious Bruff.
Perhaps. All I will say is that Mr. Bruff is a very kind man, and I am happy that I went for a walk with him. Decidedly happy.
Soon after, Mr. Godfrey returned from London. Then he and Miss Rachel went for a walk. Oh, I feared for him, I must confess. I feared for the wounds his poor heart was about to bear.
Ah, Miss Clack, my dear good lady.
Mr. Godfrey, are you all right?
Very well, Miss Clack, thank you exceedingly well. I have returned with a heavy heart and a difficult duty to perform, but now I find I don't have to do it.
No, I don't understand.
I have been considering while in London, Miss Clack, and my considerations have led me to conclude that my true happiness lay in helping my dear good ladies, like yourself, Miss Clack.
Oh.
And that I should be going my modest rounds of useful work and not blundering into marriage.
Oh.
Yes, and would you believe it, Miss Clack? Rachel has released me from her promise.
Oh, what?
Her idea. I'm no longer engaged to her.
It's off?
It's off, Mother, yes,
Well,
it's
your father
off.
won't like that,
Now,
my
just
boy.
a minute, just a minute.
Ah, here he is now.
No, hang on a moment. Mr. Bruff,
What is it? What is it now?
I just want to get this straight. This Mr. Godfrey, who is supposed to be my son, asks Dora here, that is to say Miss Rachel, to marry him, and he does this in our own garden, just out there.
Yes.
And she says no.
Yes.
And then she goes to London, and he asks her again, and this time she doesn't say no.
No, she says yes.
And then she moves to Brighton, and she says no again.
Yes.
What? No, yes, no.
Yes.
Why?
That is what we are endeavouring to show, Mr. Begbie.
Right, I see. What's this I hear, my dear? Surely I've got this wrong.
I don't think so, Uncle.
But you were engaged to my son, were you not? There was an agreement.
There was.
And now there is not. You told Godfrey the engagement is off.
He seemed quite pleased.
But you told him, Rachel, he was the jilted and you were the jilter.
That's correct. But as I said, Godfrey was...
Never mind what Godfrey was. As far as I can see, the situation is quite clear. I am no longer your guardian, and this is no longer your house.
Uncle!
Uncle, nothing.
Well, Ablewhite, you can't do this.
When you heard her, Bruff, she jilted active voice, Godfrey was jilted passive voice. Now, pack your bags and leave this house.
Oh, you high-handed old devil. Never fear, my dear. Mrs. Bruff and I will not see you homeless. If you care to join us.
Him?
You will be most welcome.
Rachel, my own modest abode is at your disposal.
Will someone stop this rampant spinster from interrupting me?
Rachel, I beg of you, don't go with that old reprobate.
Thank you, Miss Clegg. Now, Mr. Bruff, please, will you get me out of this house?
Thoughtless, heartless, ungrateful. I forgive you. I forgive you. Oh yes, I forgave her, backslider and ingrate though she was. And when I leave this earth, they will find Miss Ungrateful Rachel Verinder in my will. For I intend to leave her my entire collection of pamphlets. Bruff, I have finished my account of what happened in London and Brighton, including your own despicable part in it.
Oh, I thank you, Miss Clegg.
Miss Rachel and Mr. Godfrey were engaged. A word from you and they were split asunder. Explain yourself, sir.
Why, of course. It had puzzled me as why someone like Miss Rachel would want to throw herself away on a smooth-talking operator like Godfrey Ablewhite.
Oh, really?
But I believed that she was giving up all hope of her own happiness. She was marrying in despair. But as to why Ablewhite wanted to break the engagement, well, I know exactly why. He had discovered the terms of Lady Verinder's will.
Oh, what a suggestion.
Well, he asked to inspect it, as he was entitled to do. And what did he find? He found that due to Lady Verinder's wise caution, Miss Rachel's fortune was to be held in trust. Oh, she would have money to live on, and houses in London and in Yorkshire, but as for the fortune itself, neither her nor her intended husband could touch it. Of course, he discovered this, came down to Brighton to break off the engagement.
But she broke it off because you got to her first. You interfered.
Yes, guilty, and glad of it. And now, I would like to shed some more light on the story of the Moonstone. I was in my office one afternoon when I received a visit from one Septimus Luca. Luca, indeed, the low money lending type whose name had been linked to the missing diamond. What can I do for you, Mr. Luca?
Very good of you to see me, Mr. Bruff, sir. I know you're a busy man.
I couldn't stand him on sight. He made my flesh creep. What can I do for you?
May I ask, Mr. Bruff, if you've had another visit lately from a foreign gentleman?
Possibly.
A sort of a Oriental?
Well, possibly. Why would you wish to know?
Not to put too fine a point on it, Mr. Bruff, sir. An Indian gentleman?
Possibly.
Well, I've had one around my premises, Mr. Bruff, definitely, and he asked questions and I gave him answers. I was wondering if he'd been round here.
Well, I think you know he has, and I think you know why, because you gave him my name.
Yes, sir, I did. Yours being the first respectable names that come to my head.
And what did this Indian gentleman want to know?
He pretended he wanted to pawn something, yeah. But it wasn't that, no. He wanted to know how long he should have to wait to redeem a thing left in pledge. Is that what he asked you?
Yes, and I told him, a year to the very day.
It is what I told him also. I wonder why he should go asking you.
Because he couldn't trust Luca, clearly.
I don't mind telling you, Mr. Bruff, sir, this thing has put me on edge. They harassed me before, were you aware of that? And now this one coming with his piercing looks and his questions and... I have taken up too much of your time already, Mr. Bruff. I'll bid you good day. Good day, Mr. Bruff.
Shortly after Luca's visit, I found myself dining with the celebrated Indian traveller, Mr. Murthwaite.
Ah, well now, Bruff, you hear any more about that diamond business?
Well, only this week, as a matter of fact, Murthwaite, though the diamond was not mentioned directly. I had a visit from Septimus Luca.
The chappie hounded by the Indians.
The very same. And he told me that he had had a visit from what he called an Oriental gentleman who wanted to know how long a thing should be left in pledge before it could be redeemed.
And you had a similar visit yourself, did you?
Why, yes, I did, as a matter of fact.
Thought as much. You know what this means, don't you?
Well, well, no, not exactly.
Well, then work it out, Bruff. Work it out. It was in June last year that the diamond went missing from the house in Yorkshire, wasn't it? And it was in June that it found its way under lock and key into Luca's bank. So, in June this year, it can be collected. Some person unknown gave the Moonstone to the reptilian Luca. And that same person can redeem it. Exactly. And now the Indians know, and they'll be waiting to see when it's collected. I warn you, Bruff, I'd feel safer amongst the fiercest fanatics of Central Asia than I would crossing the door of the bank with the Moonstone in my pocket.
Oh, well, thank you, Mr. Luca. I shall, of course, take care. Before the end of June, however, Mr. Franklin Blake returned from his travels around Europe.
I had gone with the express purpose of getting Rachel out of my head. I wandered far and wide, saw many things, but when I returned, there she was still in my every thought. And her harsh words when we parted still rang in my ears. I decided to call in on her in her London home to see if her opinion towards me had softened.
She's out.
I'll come back. I did go back.
She's not at home.
But I left my card. Well, she does know it's me.
Oh, yes, sir, she does. I'm sorry, sir.
Plain enough, Rachel did not wish to know. It was the Moonstone. Yet again the Moonstone that came between us, though I could not tell how. So I journeyed north again, to the old place in Yorkshire, determined to learn of its secret.
Mr. Franklin Blake, it's good to see you back.
And you, Gabriel.
You'll always be welcome in this house, sir.
Not by its present owner, I won't. I shall not stay here for a moment longer while she holds me in such contempt.
Oh, sorry, sir, I can't say I understand it.
Well, no one understands it, Gabriel. That's why we have to get to the bottom of this mystery of the Moonstone. I have a feeling that all of our answers lie with that.
Well, in that case, sir, I can perhaps point you in the right direction. You remember Rosanna Spear, the poor who sat? Well, she's written you a letter.
About the Moonstone?
I couldn't possibly say, sir, and I couldn't possibly hand it over because it has to be put direct into your hands.
By whom?
Lucy Young. We call the cottage first thing tomorrow. No doubt she'll be glad to pass it on. We did. We called at the cottage, but I wouldn't say Lucy passed it on with an overflowing of gladness.
Poor lost Rosanna. What could you see in this man? Can you eat and drink?
Yes.
Can you sleep?
Yes.
Feel no remorse? Here, take it. I never set eyes on you before, and God Almighty forbid I should ever set eyes on you again.
Well, sir, the letter.
Oh, yes, of course. It's a note, a memorandum. Go to the shivering sands at the turn of the tide. Walk out on the south spin. Gabriel, these are instructions.
How to find a box fixed by a chain, I warrant. Shall we go, sir? Lay down on the rock, a stick in one hand. Here, use mine, sir. exactly in line with the beacon and the flagstaff. Right, now, feel over the edge at that point.
Gabriel, there's a chain.
Well done, sir. Well done.
Hello, the lantern. Wait, there's something more. It's a nightshirt.
You remember what the sergeant said? An article of clothing.
Smeared with paint from the door. And it says, look, you can see the mark.
Find that article of clothing, he said, and you won't have far to look for the hand that took the diamond.
There'll be a name inside the label.
Oh, find it, find it.
Here it is, look. Gabriel, it's my name.
What? How can it be?
What is it? It's my night dress.
I don't understand. Find that article of clothing.
And you won't have far to look for the hand that took the Moonstone. So, by cost calculation, I am the thief.
He was stunned by the discovery. Well, so was I. We walked back to the house in silence. But before we could untangle these threads, we were met by one Ezra Jennings, who called with a message for Miss Rachel.
Who?
Ezra Jennings. Strange man. You remember little Dr. Candy at Miss Rachel's party?
Yes, of course. We argued about medicine.
I am Dr. Candy's assistant.
She's in London at the moment, Mr. Jennings.
I see, thank you. A quiet man. I keep myself to myself.
Which is fortunate.
Why is that?
I don't much like him, nobody does.
Because of my peculiar appearance, no doubt. Dark, mysterious, quiet. People avoid me. I beg your pardon, Mr. Betteridge. I have brought the list.
The list?
Yes, sir. Miss Rachel, like her mother before her, does her best to visit the sick. This is the list. Excuse me for interrupting, sir.
Not at all, Mr. Jennings. Perhaps we shall meet again.
I feel sure we shall, sir.
Which of course they would. There must be some other explanation to all this, sir. What does the letter say?
A letter?
Rosanna's letter.
Oh, yes, of course. Sir, I have something to own to you.
Oh, for heaven's sake, sir, what does it say?
I love you.
Sir?
I love you, Gabriel. It's what the letter says.
Oh! Well, my daughter thought as much.
I have no idea, absolutely no idea at all. The poor girl.
Does she say anything more to the point, sir?
What she says, Gabriel, I mean the sort of thing, you know.
I loved you. The moment I first saw you. That day in the cliffs, by the shivering sands. I tried to make you notice me, sir. But I soon saw that it was useless. That I could never match Miss Rachel. That she cared for you.
Well, there she was wrong. Rachel was by no means the rival she thought her to be.
I was given the task of cleaning your room. And I rejoiced in it. Oh, I would kiss the pillows on your bed.
Oh, I say. Gabriel, I don't think you should be reading this.
I'm not, sir.
And then that awful morning, after the diamond disappeared, I went in and I saw your nightshirt and the paint stain. And I panicked. Sir, I hurried it off to your room. I knew what it meant. That you, the last to leave Miss Rachel's room, that you must have been guilty of the theft.
No, I wasn't.
I couldn't tell anyone. I know I should have done, but I couldn't. For love of you. I decided to keep it hidden and to make another just like it to prove your innocence.
Why didn't the poor girl speak of this before?
I did try to speak to you, sir, about it, if you remember. But the great cut spoiled the occasion for me.
It was the following morning, sir.
You have anything else to tell me, sir? No. You're sure of that, are you, sir?
Of course I'm sure, Sergeant. Why should I have anything more to tell you?
Conversations you might have had, perhaps. Tell me, sir, you feel any interest in Rosanna Spearman?
What? No, I feel no interest in Rosanna. That's right. I remember.
Yes, sir. I saw Rosanna, clear as day, turn on her heels and run off.
And you mean to say she was there all that time?
I went to the Yollens cottage to write this note. And then to hide the night dress in the shivering sands. While it is safely hidden, you are safe too. I shall take care that you learn what I have done for you when I am past telling you of it myself. Will you say something kind about me then? In that same gentle way you speak to Miss Rachel? Oh, if you do that, I believe my ghost will hear it and tremble with the pleasure of it.
I could see no other course of action open to me but a return to London and a meeting with Bruff. And finally, whether she wished it or no, a confrontation with Rachel. Better route saw me to the station.
That's right, sir.
London train! This is for London train!
You don't believe I did this to you, Gabriel?
Not for one moment, sir. But there are questions to be answered and none of them easy. I mean, could you take the diamond without knowing it?
And if I did?
Where is the wretched thing?
Exactly. However, there will be answers in London, I'm sure.
Well, take care, sir. If there's any news from this quarter, I'll be in touch.
Mind out down the platform, train about to depart.
Mr. Jennings, do you know that gentleman?
We met briefly, Mr. Betteridge, when I brought you the sick list, but you did not introduce me.
Well, then I wanted you wave. That is Mr. Franklin Blake.
Franklin Blake? Well, I know of him, certainly. Dr. Candy has spoken of him. In fact, I have a message for Mr. Blake, if you'd be kind enough to pass it on.
London, London. All change, if you please.
In London, I went straight to Mr. Bruff's house in Hampstead. Now, Mr. Bruff, what do you make of that? The paint stain, the night dress?
Well, it is evidence, of course, but it's far from conclusive. Do you know you were wearing this the night it was marked by the paint?
I'm afraid I remember nothing. But surely Rosanna's letter must weigh against it.
Again, not necessarily. Perhaps she showed the night dress to Miss Rachel to prove that you had taken the Moonstone. It was in her interest to set barriers between you. I take it Miss Rachel had no other cause to doubt you, did she?
None.
Good.
Oh, wait. Yes, one. I owed money to a Frenchman. A rather loud Frenchman. Rachel didn't approve, she told me so. She thought me dissolute, or so she said.
Well, she may find it in her heart to forgive you. Most men are dissolute at one time or another. You must put the question to her.
She refuses to see me.
Ah. Well, in that case, she must come across you by accident. Leave it to me. I will invite her to this house the day after tomorrow.
How time dragged throughout that intervening day.
My dear, I wonder, would you mind waiting here for just a few moments? I have one or two things to attend to.
Rachel, no, please listen to me, I beg. I told her of our discovery of the night dress at the Shivering Sands. I asked her if she knew about it, if Rosanna had shown her. I had to know if the poor girl had been deliberately poisoned against me.
Are you mad?
Rachel, you must answer me.
If you think I can be duped like that, then you must be.
What do you mean?
Rosanna, you suspect her of turning me against you. She had no need. I saw you take the diamond with my own eyes. You've nothing to say for yourself.
You saw me?
I couldn't sleep. I was thinking of you, Franklin. I got up about 1 o'clock to fetch your book, and that's when I saw you come into my room. I went straight to the cabinet where the Moonstone was kept and stood there for an age, thinking, in some kind of turmoil, I don't know. Then you must have decided because you took it and hurried out. So, what have you to say for yourself?
I don't know.
You didn't see me, of course. If you had, you wouldn't have gone ahead with the theft.
Oh, theft, Rachel, please don't say that.
What else am I to call it? Do you still deny it?
If you say that I took it, then I must.
I told no one what I'd seen. I couldn't understand your behaviour. I gave you every opportunity to explain yourself, you remember?
Our talk in the garden.
Yes, where you persisted in acting as if you knew nothing. Why did you come here, Franklin? To keep me from telling the truth.
How can you think that of me?
I tried to stop thinking of you altogether, to tear you from my heart, but I couldn't. I despise myself even more than I despise you.
You wrong me, Rachel. You shall know how much you've wronged me, or you shall never see me again.
Please, I forgive you. Say you forgive me too.
Well, my friend, how did it go? Oh. Oh, well, then I suspect you must not see Miss Rachel again.
I do not intend to.
Oh, do not despair, Mr. Blake, and let us look to the future and consider what we already know to be the case. It seems that you took the Moonstone, and yet it is not in your possession. We know that it was pawned to Mr. Luca, and is at this very moment in his bag. We suspect that it can be redeemed at the end of 1 year. That is to say, next month. Mr. Murthwaite warns that the Indians will be waiting and watching. We too shall wait and watch, Mr. Blake. If we can see who redeems the Moonstone, we may yet be able to prove your innocence.
Wait and watch. Is there nothing more can be done? But surely we can speak to Sergeant Cuff again.
Well, there is little point. Cuff has retired.
But his interest in the case must remain.
Well, try if you wish, by all means. But I suspect he is now interested in, well, other things.
I could not remain inactive, so I took myself to Dorking, to Sergeant Cuff's cottage, where I was met by his wife. Mrs. Cuff, I was hoping to have a word with Sergeant Cuff.
He's not here.
The garden?
No.
The kitchen.
Island. Yes, Island.
Oh, in that case, would you give him this?
He's gone to Ireland on business.
Thank you, Mrs. Cuff. Perhaps you'll be so
On
kind.
Rose business. He goes there sometimes. He quite likes it.
Thank you, Mrs. Cuff. Just give him this, please. The note to Cuff.
Oh, see, he gets it, young gentleman. Never fair when he gets back from Ireland. The roses are very good at this time of year, you know.
The note to Cuff, reminding me that I had a note of my own in my pocket, or rather, a note sent down to me from Yorkshire by Gabriel Bettridge. It told me that little Dr. Candy had asked to see me, and said, in fact, that he had a matter of great importance to speak to me about. So, I returned to Fritchmore, and the very next day called in on Dr. Candy. Dr. Candy.
I know you.
Poor man was a shadow of his former self. Dr. Candy, you sent me a message through Gabriel Bettridge.
Yes, yes.
You asked to see me, Dr. Candy.
Yes. Now, what was that?
Well, I had hoped that it had something to do with the Moonstone.
The Moonstone?
No, it wasn't that. Or the party we had that day.
Party?
Can you remember?
Party?
Party for Miss Rachel. I was there, so was Mr. Murthwaite and the Ablewhites.
Betteridge, yes. Behind the chairs with the suit. Yes, that's it. I knew there was something. Yes. It was a very pleasant dinner.
What you wanted to tell me, Dr. Canning, can you recall?
No, I asked Betteridge to send for you. A most important detail, yes.
But you can't remember why.
No.
You have found Dr. Candy sadly changed, I'm afraid.
Jennings.
I have looked after him for many years, helped with his practice, and well, I more or less run it now. He's unlikely to improve.
Mr. Jennings, have you any idea what Dr. Candy wanted to tell me? He clearly wanted to tell me something.
I'm sure on many occasions as I sat with him, he would call out your name.
And the Moonstone, did he mention that?
I'm sorry. I've kept meticulous notes of everything Dr. Candy says, though at times it's little more than rambling. He never mentioned the diamond. I believe he was disturbed by a conversation you had the night of Miss Rachel's party.
A conversation with Dr. Candy?
Yes. Do you recall, perhaps, how you were feeling that night?
Yes, I was out of sorts, but why?
Your nerves are out of order, sir. You must allow me to recommend a course of medicine.
A course of medicine and a course of groping in the dark are one and the same to me, Doctor.
Nonsense, sir. I assure you that...
You may not be able to assure me where doctors and medicine are concerned.
Oh, really, sir, I cannot see how such prejudice...
Reason, not prejudice.
Please.
That's right, I remember. We argued about medicine. But is that of any significance?
I believe so, sir, yes. I believe Dr. Candy decided to teach you a lesson for your strong opinions.
How do you mean?
Well, I believe by making sure that you had your medicine, whether you would or no.
You mean to say that he slipped me a draft on the quiet? But what, Mr. Jennings? A draft of what?
Why, is it not yet clear to you? Opium, Mr. Blake. Opium. Look at me, Mr. Blake. You are aware that people find something unsettling in my manner, in my appearance, that they shrink from me. No, do not protest. I have seen them do it, and I know why. For years I have suffered an affliction of the nerves. I am in pain every day, quite severe pain sometimes. Many people do not like that. The only relief I experience is through opium. I understand opium, Mr. Blake. I know its properties, the effects it is capable of producing.
Do you mean to say that I took opium?
It is. Yes, I think
That's
so,
ridiculous, Mr. Jennings. How could Dr. Candy have slipped me anything? I saw him to his carriage. It was an open carriage on a night of rain. I remember it.
Well, who else was there?
You look down in, Blake.
Oh, I should be all right.
I'm sure a little brandy and water wouldn't come amiss. Help you sleep, perhaps.
Yes, perhaps.
Allow me to bring you some.
Thank you, Godfrey. That's most kind. Good! Godfrey Ablewhite slipped me the drops, and I took the Moonstone whilst under the influence of opium.
It is quite possible, believe me, sir.
You mean to say that I was sleepwalking?
Well, opium does not merely send one to sleep. For a time, one is completely alert, though one cannot remember what one does during that time. Mr. Blake, will you permit me to suggest an experiment?
What is it?
Let us recreate, as far as we can, the night of the party, the conditions under which you took the diamond.
It can't be done.
It can. Your being out of sorts was due to giving up cigars, am I right?
Yes.
And you've since taken to smoking again.
Yes.
Then give up once more. You will experience sleeplessness and irritability as before, and I will prepare a draught to make you sleep. It may have the same effect on you, only this time we'll make sure there are witnesses.
So we may learn how the Moonstone ended up in Lucas' bank.
We may.
Then let it be done, Mr. Jennings. Let it be done.
I sent word to Mr. Bruff and Miss Rachel, and they came to witness our experiment.
Stuff and nonsense, Mr. Jennings, stuff and nonsense.
You don't think our experiment worth trying?
Well, if I wanted magic, I could have got that at the hall.
It's not magic, Mr. Bruff.
Huh.
Does Franklin know I'm here?
No, miss. Only that you agreed to the experiment taking place at Fritzing.
Then please don't tell him. I've loved Franklin Blake in spite of all that's happened, and if this will hope to prove his innocence, then I want to be there to see it.
I hope that's exactly what it does prove, miss.
Thank you, Mr. Jennings. Thank you.
Days went by, and gradually the effect of Mr. Blake abstaining from his cigars a second time became apparent.
Oh, this is a complete waste of
Be
time!
patient, Mr. Blake.
Patient? A patient for what? What if this proves absolutely nothing?
But we were patient, and he did submit until I felt the time was right. In order to recreate the evening of the party as closely as possible, I engaged Mr. Blake in conversation about the Moonstone. Can the diamond really be safe, do you think, Mr. Blake?
I don't know, but it unsettles me having it around. Ever since I removed it from the bank.
And since that fact became common knowledge.
Indeed, yes. I shan't sleep a wink until I net safely back under lock and key. The Indian acrobats are, of course, a concern.
Eventually, the draft began to work on
Emerged from
him,
nowhere.
and he talked himself
These
into a
texts,
sleep.
I know them to be very determined. Cannot leave it here. Not under lock and key.
He's up to Miss Rachel's room.
Yes, but not to steal. You heard what he said?
You see, Mr. Bruff, he took it, but he didn't steal it.
Oh, Mr. Jennings, I owe you an apology. This clearly proves young Blake's innocence.
Oh, Franklin.
Well, what's he done with it?
If we wait a little longer, we may yet see. What? Ah, it's no good now, he's awake.
So he cannot tell us what happened next.
No, now the first effects of the draft are over, he will simply fall into a more profound sleep.
Would somebody mind telling me just what exactly?
Now I think we must leave him to recover his senses in his own time.
Franklin, how can I forgive
No,
you?
don't speak.
So, the stealing of the Moonstone has, in part, been explained. It was taken, well, almost by chance, by a man who did not know what he was doing. Wilkins! What we do not know is what happened to it after that. But we do know where we must go to solve that particular mystery.
London! London! All aboard for the London train!
As soon as we could, Mr. Bruff and I went down to London with Rachel. We were determined to seek out the final piece of the jigsaw.
And once in London, we were met by the most extraordinary.
He was known in the office as Gooseberry on account of his most prominent eyes. My, but he put those orbs to good use, did young Gooseberry. A sharper, more observant lad I had never known.
Welcome back, Mr. Buster. I've got a bit of news for you.
Well, say on, Gooseberry.
It's that Mr. Lucas, sir, who asked me to keep a prominent eye on.
Luca, what about it?
Just left his house, sir, and is heading for Lombard Street, sir, in the company of two heavies. That's to St. Peter's.
Lombard Street, that's his bank. Well done, Gooseberry. You must come with us. There are things still to be done. Rachel, I will get a cab to take you to your house. Franklin, you and I will go directly to the bank.
There he is, you can tell.
Quietly, Mr. Blake. We are not the only ones waiting or watching, remember.
Did you see that short fat man in the hat?
Yes, I did. Gooseberry after him straight away. Oh, he's gone. You! Follow Luca. Right your ship! Right your ship!
Who's that?
Oh, another member of my staff. You must remember, Mr. Blake, you're in the city now where everyone is decidedly shifty. Sometimes it is necessary to employ some of the shiftiest. But let us keep an eye on our short, fat friend. There's something about this fellow.
After him?
No.
But he could be our man.
No, he's not. Do you see where he's going?
Into the chemist shop. He's trying to give us the slip.
Well, not exactly. He is the chemist. I knew I'd seen him somewhere.
Then we've been thrown. Luca probably set that up on purpose.
Well, you and I make very poor detectives, Mr. Blake. Let us return to my office and see if our spies have any other news for us.
Well,
Nothing so far, my love, and no sign of the Indians either, which worries me. They must be around here somewhere.
Well, don't give up yet, my friends. Any news?
The scrape done a pity has gardened and rotted.
what?
Yes.
Luca dropped off his police guard and went home. Thank you, Raymond.
Luca went home without his guard. That surely means...
Yes. It means he'd already passed on the Moonstone. Otherwise, they would never have left him on his own. And we missed it. Curses!
But you have other people looking.
Well, we have Gooseberry.
Yeah, except that Gooseberry went off by himself and is nowhere to be seen.
Shh! Here's someone coming.
Mr. Blake, sir. I got your message. I was in Ireland when you called. There were roses there needed my attention.
So you've returned to take up the case to regain your reputation.
Well, I got it wrong last time, sir. No, don't like that in myself. I prefer to get it right this time. I understand the taking of the Moonstone has been explained.
Mr. Jennings explained it to us, yes.
He said that I took the diamond whilst sleepwalking.
Sleepwalking under the influence of opium.
Because I'd given up cigars.
See, well, that all makes perfect sense to me. Well, it fits the events, miss, so it must.
Mr. Jennings attempted to recreate the events of that evening for us in an experiment. Unfortunately, Mr. Blake here awoke before we could have any clues as to what are you doing?
What happened to the Moonstone after it had been taken? That's what you were about to say, sir. And I think we are about to find out. When we do, sir, be so good as to take this note from your pocket and read it out then, and not until then. As I said, I was wrong once, I will not be wrong again.
Blimey!
Good afternoon to you too. This, I take it, is Gooseberry.
Yes.
It's Sergeant Cuff, the great Cuff! I followed every word of the boot in the saucepan, mystery, sir. That was brilliant!
Thank you, Gooseberry. I'm hoping you can shed a little more light on the current puzzle.
Yes, sir.
Where did Luca go when he left the bank?
I expect you noticed that peculiar-looking sailor.
No.
Well, I did, and I followed him down to the docks. He was waiting to get on board the ship what was off to Rotterdam the next day. But they wasn't boarding yet, so he had to wait. And while he was waiting, this other gent turned up, a bit like a mechanic or an engineer he was. And he was following the sailor, and I was following the both of them. And we all fetched up at this inn, the Wheel of Fortune. Now the sailor, he takes the room, and he goes upstairs, see? And the mechanic, he goes upstairs too, a bit later. And then there's an hullabaloo and a commotion. And the landlord drags him downstairs, dead drunk, and throws him out.
You don't treat a respectable member of the Mechanics Guild like that and get away with it. I've marked your coat, mate, and don't you worry.
Mechanics Guild, my eye. He was hired by the Indians to watch the bank, unless I'm much mistaken.
An ill choice they made then, if he couldn't wait without resorting to drink.
Oh, you think that's what he did? Tell him, Gooseberry.
He weren't no more drunk than you and me, sir. And he picks himself up, calm and quick as you like.
Of course, I wasn't drunk. Oh, dear.
No, he knew what he was about, all right. We must make our way there straight away. To the Wheel of Fortune down at the docks. And it would be a good idea to get down there with as little delay as possible.
This is it, sir.
Landlord?
What you want? I'm busy. I've got a party of dockers just come in.
You've got a sailor staying with you, tall, with a black beard.
And what if we have? Who wants to know?
Sergeant Cuff wants to know.
Blimey. Well, yes, we have, as a matter of fact. And he's causing a great deal of fuss at the moment. He's locked himself in his room, won't come out, won't even answer.
I doubt you'll be getting any answers from him, my friend, till Judgment Day at the very earliest. We shall have to break the door down. What can you see?
There's something white against the door! Good Lord above!
What is he?
He's here, all right, but he's dead!
Dead? Stand back. Nobody touch.
He's been strangled.
Look, sir, he's got a box.
An empty box and a note. Be good enough to read that, will you, miss?
Deposited with Messrs. Bush, Lysalt and Bush by Mr. Septimus Luca. A small wooden box containing a valuable of great price.
The Moonstone.
Only to be given up on the personal application of Mr. Luca.
And this certainly is not Septimus Luca.
Well, who the devil is it then?
Mr. Blake, sir, be so good as to take out that note I gave you earlier. And tell us what it says.
Godfrey Abel.
And perhaps you will confirm that this is...
Godfrey Abel!
Godfrey took the Moonstone.
He did, miss. He witnessed the sleepwalking and obtained the gem when Mr. Blake returned to sleep. When he observed that you knew who'd taken the diamond, but you intended to say nothing about it, well, his way was clear.
But why? Why would he want it?
His interest was philanthropy.
Ah, his interest was not entirely philanthropy, as Mr. Luca can tell us. Can't you, Mr. Luca?
It was a business arrangement, that's all. Where the thing came from was nothing to do with me.
Of course it was, man. You knew it wasn't the property of Godfrey Ablewhite, so it must therefore have been the property of someone else. You lent money on tarnished goods, sir. Now tell us, why did Ablewhite need the money?
Same as always, Sergeant. Debts. Ablewhite owed £20,000.
And he couldn't pay, could he?
No,
Why not?
he'd spent it.
Spent £20,000. Oh, God.
I had expenses, Rachel. You've no idea. The Moonstone provided the ideal opportunity for me to meet them.
I loaned the money in my official capacity.
When I was able to pay Luca back, I intended to reclaim the Moonstone, take it abroad and have it cut into smaller stones.
I can't believe you'd lower yourself.
I can. I never liked the man.
You asked me to marry him.
For money, my dear Rachel. Once I discovered you couldn't get your hands on your own inheritance, I dropped you like a hot brick.
What you people realised was there were two sides to Godfrey Ablewhite. Side A, the philanthropist, the committee man devoted to good causes. And side B,
The man with expenses round his neck.
with a fine house in the suburbs not held in his own name, and a woman in that house not held in his own name either.
Here, that'll do. Resume your place.
Where is the Moonstone now?
The drunken mechanic has it, you, sir. You have the Moonstone.
I do not, sir. And I was not drunk. Oh, don't you listen to anything. It was my job to follow the man and loosen the latch on the window, that's all.
So someone else got into the room through the window
Opened by me.
and took the Moonstone.
Reclaimed the Moonstone, you might say.
Reclaimed. Then who employed you to do this?
An Indian gentleman. I'm saying no more.
Oh, you need say no more. The Moonstone is back in India, at a sacred site where even now they are building a new temple.
And so, the story of the Moonstone ended, well, at least for the time being, with two ceremonies.
One here in Yorkshire. The wedding of my mistress and Mr. Franklin Blake.
But the other ceremony was far away at that sacred site where people came in their thousands to a remote spot in the hills, with
Right.
the moon high in the sky.
Raised up on his throne, with his forearms extended to the four corners of the earth. Their sword above them dark and awful against the mystic light of heaven, the god of the moon. And there, in the forehead of the deity, gleamed the great yellow diamond, known to us as the Moonstone.
The Moonstone will have its vengeance yet on you and yours.